Hey guys, this is Hippie Kid Plants. I hope you're ready for another garden tour. Let's go. Today I'm going to show you a garden tour and some cool new care tips. From my last video you can see how much my garden has changed. My tomato plants have really taken over everything. I've been trying to trim them back, but they're still just going crazy. It's pretty much a forest of tomato plants at this point. They're all wrapping over everything else. They're climbing over top of my pepper plants, definitely climbing over the basil. They're really climbing over everything. Right, Rusty? I've tried to stake them up a little bit to help, but I need much bigger stakes. These are only like 4-foot stakes. They're not doing much. They're pretty narrow too. I'm gonna get some 6-foot ones that are a lot thicker. Hopefully that'll help a bit, but I don't know, it's kind of interesting. I'm pretty happy that my garden is doing so well, but at the same time, I'm like, this is a little too much. Like, it's kind of taking out everything else. But. So I've been having a problem with chipmunks taking my strawberries, and I didn't want to put a cage around the garden because my cats like to come sit in it and stuff, and I like to come in and get stuff myself. So I decided to try this new little technique. I put little baggies, like little jewelry baggies, over top of my strawberries, and it seems to be going pretty well. I mean, they still get some, but for the most part, they can't get them out of the bags very well, and so they just give up and they don't even bother. So I've actually been able to enjoy 3 strawberries this week, which is more than I've had ever before, so I'm pretty happy with these little baggies. Checking out my beefsteak. They're really starting to look like beefsteak tomatoes. Looking great. This one has some cracking going on. I think it had some damage just because of the cage, and also we got a lot of water after it being pretty dry, so that's normal. But the other ones look great, so I'm happy about that. See, these are my little garden helpers. Good girl, Rusty. You like checking out the garden? While we're over here, check out my peppers. These are bell peppers coming in. It's kind of crazy how big the fruit can be on such a small plant. It's like, wow, it's like a huge tumor, but it's gonna taste delicious. So my sunflower opened up. Look at it, it's so beautiful. This is a Teo sunflower. Apparently they're only supposed to have 1 head, but I don't know if I'm just lucky, but I'm gonna be getting a few more sunflowers out of this guy too. So yeah, ooh, little ladybug. Yeah, but look at all these blooms. These are going to turn into flowers too, which I'm very surprised about, but I'm not complaining. And this is my other one. It's much taller than this guy, and I think it's because it needed to reach the sun to get over this bush here, so it's like I'm just going to climb real tall. So that'll be interesting to see. Cannabis corner, the best part of the garden in my opinion. They're doing really well. In fact, this guy is pretty much ready to be harvested. So you can tell they're ready to be harvested when all the little hairs, so you can see this guy has like white hairs still, like these up here. But once they all start to turn to brown, like on this guy, that's when you know it's ready to harvest. Over here I have my Roma tomato and my carrots growing. My carrots are not doing well at all. I had to put this mesh up because critters kept coming in and digging holes in here, which sucked. So I pretty much only have like maybe 2 carrots at this point, but I'm still optimistic. And this is my Roma tomato. It has blossom end rot, which is so unfortunate, but I realized I forgot to put eggshell cuttings into this bag when I first planted it, so that could be a component because blossom end rot happens when there isn't enough calcium, and also it could happen because we had like extreme amounts of water come in the other day, so maybe that's why too. But the other ones are doing okay. It's also pretty common to have blossom end rot for the first few tomatoes, which is, I'm not heartbroken about it. It's really interesting to see that this guy in the grow bag is not even nearly as massive as the ones I have in the garden. So I'm gonna try and experiment and grow another cherry tomato in a grow bag this summer and see if it gets as massive as the other ones in the garden, just as an experiment, because I wanna grow a lot more tomatoes in grow bags next year, but if they don't do as well, then that might change my opinion. I do want to do a full houseplant tour and on a later date, but for now, these are the ones I brought outside. This is my Rhaphidophora tetrasperma, Prince of Orange philodendron, White Princess philodendron, Pelia peperomia, This is one of my favorites, my Ring of Fire philodendron. What a beauty. That one is also my most expensive plant. So I definitely want it to get some nice humidity, but I put it at the back just so it stays safe in case anything happens. Dogs, you know, come running around the corner and stuff. And these are the other ones I have down here. This is my watermelon peperonia. This is my fiddle leaf fig. My pink princess philodendron. It's a beauty. Let me show you the pink variegation. Look at that. My variegated string of pearls. Petunias in the back, some more string of pearls. This is a string of turtles. Kind of has tortoise shells. This is a string of dolphins. Let me see if I can find one that looks like a dolphin here. They're supposed to look like jumping dolphins. I can see it. And these are my string of pearls longhead, also known as a string of watermelon. This is really just the tip of the iceberg with my houseplants. My plant obsession started with houseplants, so I have over 100. But these are some of my favorites for sure. This is a strawberry plant I started from seed from one of the strawberries in the garden. It's coming along well. Maybe it'll get to be planted in the garden. We'll wait and see. So my squash in the grow bag was originally doing way better than the other ones, but now it's not so much doing great. It keeps losing all of its blossoms. They're all dying like off. It's really sad. Not too sure, but we'll wait and see. I'm still optimistic. The pumpkin patch is flourishing. Check this out. I swear it got crazy within like a matter of days. It just started climbing like crazy. Look at these guys. This one is climbing up the tree. I don't know if you can see or not. It's all the way up here already. That's pretty cool. And it's also wrapping around the front of the property like this. And this morning I noticed my first little squash. It's so good. Look at this cute little guy too. Yay. And back here are my pumpkins. I planted them way too close. I didn't think they were all gonna come in, and they did. So we're gonna have a lot of pumpkins this year. Hopefully they don't suffocate each other out. These are 2 more pumpkins. I planted 2 seeds there, thinking probably only one would take. Both of them did. Okay, and this is my first time growing potatoes. Check out the foliage. I mean, potato plants are probably underrated because this is just gorgeous, and I definitely want to grow more potatoes. Just look at them coming in. They're so cute. It's like a darker foliage than most of the stuff I have growing in my garden is like a light green. This is more of like a blue-green hue. I just think it's beautiful. This pumpkin plant is the real MVP probably. The really long ones are the squash plants. I planted them earlier than the pumpkins, but look at the size of this guy. He's already doing so well. Oh, I see a bug. Oh, I'm gonna get you. This is the bug. Oh, shoot, it flew. Oh, damn it. I was gonna squish it. Well, those are 3-striped potato bugs. They have been just destroying my plants out here. I've been putting diatomaceous earth on them, but this is the damage from them. I've been trying to take off a lot of the damaged leaves because they just keep going back to them. They also like to have orgy parties in the flowers, which just sucks. So I caught a bunch of them this morning in a flower, and I sacrificed the flower for them to kill them for the greater good of the crop, you know, so. I'm going to put more diatomaceous earth out on top of these. What diatomaceous earth is, it's sort of like a white powder you just put on top. It's made of crushed up fossils from the ocean, and pretty much it gets under their exoskeleton as they're walking around, and it makes it really uncomfortable for them to walk, and they eventually just sort of become immobile and they die, which is a little bit morbid, but you know, it's one of the more humane ways, in my opinion, to deal with it. Rather than using chemicals and stuff, and diatomaceous earth is organic, so it's not going to mess up the flavors of my crops or make it unsafe for me to eat. So that's sort of my main thinking with it. But I also really just like the classic squash option. I see that as a quick death, and so if I see them, I just grab them off as best I can and squish them. But the ones that fly, like you saw, they take off. So I try to grab them in my palm, not really let them run around too much, just whoop. But they're still pretty gross. This is my stilbe, also known as a fancy fern, and it's now fancy. I think these are really beautiful. I'm gonna grow a lot more next year. They are perennials, so they keep growing every year and they keep expanding. So that's why I gave this such a big spot. So next year it can just keep growing and expanding. This hosta is starting to flower. Really pretty. Hostas are kind of underrated. I think I've given them a hard time in my opinion, just because my mom's always had them and they're just sort of like a garden filler. She doesn't like to do much in the garden, so she always put hostas in. But you know what? They are pretty beautiful, and I'm really interested to see when the flowers open up as well. Come around the side and I noticed something. My neighbor also has a fancy fern. I'm gonna have to have a conversation with her about it because hers is much older than mine. It's been here for a few years and I just found out about it this year, so that's when I planted it. So she maybe knows more about gardening than I do. Gonna have to ask her how she found that guy and where she got it from, because hers is really beautiful too. Yeah, look at it over there, little cutie pie. We've got fancy ferns on the street. My other neighbor on the other side also has fancy ferns. I ordered them for her because I wanted to help her out with the garden, and she just loved the idea. So the 3 houses in a row all got fancy ferns. Pretty nice. With a pumpkin patch in between. That's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching. This is Hippie Kid Plants.